It's no secret that Sakamoto Days has a bunch of great looking fights. But among the Shishiba versus Yochimuras and the Sakamoto versus Kashimas, one fight still stands out as being the best, and that's Sakamoto versus Kanaguri. Now, what makes this fight so incredible is the combination of the plot building up, the execution, and the hype moments that are just interspersed throughout the whole fight. And so, the fight starts off super explosively. Satada sensei, Sakamoto's former teacher and the person who the reader has been essentially bonding with throughout the whole arc, has just been taken out by Kanaguri right in front of Akira and Sakamoto's eyes. Instantly, the reader gets a sense that not only is Akira gonna go crazy, but especially Sakamoto is gonna go crazy. But at the same time, with how strong Sakamoto is, there's still tension. We know how strong Kanaguri is. He's incredibly strong. He killed an order member in order to take his place, and he's already had a run-in with Sakamoto where he took 0 damage. All this comes to a boil when Sakamoto finally makes his first strike, abandoning the disguise Nagumo gave him and flying in for a hit on an unaware Kanaguri, only to do 0 damage. At this point, I, along with many other readers, didn't really expect Fat Sakamoto to be able to really do much to Kanaguri. He's in his weakest state, he's out of his prime, and he's going up against an order member. But reading as Kanaguri casually dodges and is unfazed by all of Sakamoto's moves and attacks, only to blatantly speed blitz him and land a clean cut on him, really amped up the tension in the fight, even if the cut was merely a scratch on his cheek. But the fight really takes the hype to another level as 2 bombs are dropped on the reader. First, Kanaguri reveals the fate of Rion, Akira's aunt, as he casually taunts her about Rion's death at the hands of Slur. This was something that was foreshadowed at by Sakamoto's hesitancy, but to have this just dropped on the reader was absolutely insane. And immediately after this, Satada, even in death, wanted the smoke as she throws her weapon and pierces Kanaguri's camera to get his eye. And the hype just does not stop with this fight. Like I alluded to earlier, I had expected Sakamoto to really go off on Kanaguri, really give him the smoke after seeing Satada die, and we finally see that happen. With Kanaguri's camera broken, Sakamoto lands a series of attacks on Kanaguri, ultimately sending them both flying into a library where an incredible exchange happens. They meet in front of a bookshelf, and they just throw hands, dodging, interspersing their hands between books before Sakamoto ultimately grabs Kanaguri's scarf and drags him through the bookshelf to launch him elsewhere. It's here that we see the tide shift once again, as Kanaguri takes some random kid's phone for its camera and begins to pick up his motivation as a filmmaker again. He starts speed blitzing Sakamoto, commenting on his bad composition, how he knows the frames like the back of his hand, before ultimately doing the craziest zoom shot of cinematic history, literally slamming the phone into Sakamoto's face, cracking his glasses, which is something not even a bullet could do, and sends Sakamoto flying. But Sakamoto wasn't just gonna take that zoom shot, no. We see as Kanaguri is calling Sakamoto fat, proudly boasting about his audiences in film, that the bookshelves begin shaking as they all collectively slide, pinning Kanaguri in between them and hitting a wall. Through the smoke, we see Sakamoto transformed back into his skinny self, commenting on how Kanaguri's script kind of sucks. At this point in the story, Skinny Sakamoto has been on hiatus ever since his fight with Kashima. We haven't really been able to see him go fully all out since then. So when Sakamoto pulls back up in his skinny form, everyone knows it's about to go down. We see Sakamoto's increased strength as he lands a nasty kick on Kanaguri before literally just punching him through several bookshelves and making him bleed. Kanaguri responds by pulling out a camera from literally nowhere and prepares to film Sakamoto's death. It's at this point that the fight goes on hiatus, but when the fight does come back, it comes back with a banger. After the absolute banger of a fight that is Shishiba versus Yotsumura, we finally get to see what Sakamoto and Kanaguri have been up to. They're now situated in a theater, and they exchange a few words before they proceed to start fighting again. Sakamoto stabbing with his pen, and Kanaguri using his little director's cutboard thing. Readers get to see the power of Kanaguri's light, as it's, pretty high density. It's shooting an actual laser. It literally melts through Sakamoto's pen and the floorboards of the stage as Kanaguri tries to educate Sakamoto on his views of movies and the world at large. But Sakamoto was not having it with Kanaguri's ideology. After Kanaguri mentions Satoda's death, Sakamoto begins going off, throwing these metal pipes at Kanaguri, seemingly in a fit of rage. But as Kanaguri taunts Sakamoto for his temper and hatred of him as a director, he fires his laser only to have it reflected back at him. With Kanaguri stunned by Sakamoto's fight IQ, they have a crazy exchange as they attempt to attack each other between the reflected light beams, before Kanaguri throws his little director clipboard to take out the light and casually catches Sakamoto's punch, calling him an action director and essentially saying he's just predictable. But then Sakamoto borrows a move from Satoda using Aikido that throws Kanaguri onto a chair before launching him up and hitting him with a pipe. Then we see the greatest panel in the manga with Sakamoto and Kanaguri casting a shadow on the stage while they throw hands, and Kanaguri notes that despite Sakamoto supposedly being some extra that had retired years ago, his movements are still too fast for his lens to follow as Sakamoto starts just speed blitzing him and showing us why he's the GOAT. The fight then wraps up as Sakamoto takes another pipe and blows a huge puff of air strong enough to send Kanaguri flying back into the theater, finally defeating him once and for all. Except, just kidding, Kanaguri was actually faking all the blood on his face as he catches Sakamoto off guard and gets a clean cut on him. This alone makes Kanaguri one of the strongest characters in the series, but that's besides the point. He then taunts Sakamoto about his daughter and his reluctance to go all out, prompting Sakamoto to try a little harder before Akira jumps in to block his punch, fully ending the fight. This fight's conclusion sets in motion several things that are currently still going on in the manga and heavily foreshadows future events. For instance, Akira's desire for revenge is literally the entire motivation for the current arc, and this is the first time we've seen Sakamoto lose even while in his skinny form. This puts into perspective just how strong Kanaguri is, and with the only other time we see Sakamoto lose being at the hands of Slur, who also mentions Sakamoto's daughter. Much like Kanaguri, I believe this foreshadows an inevitable conflict with Sakamoto's family. Sakamoto's rejection of killing has been brought up several times in the manga, and with the introduction of more powerful characters, I think it's only a matter of time before Sakamoto's family is truly put in danger, and his only choice will be to kill or have his loved ones killed. So all in all, with the things this sets up, the hype moments, and the incredible choreography, it's easy to see why this really is the best fight in Sakamoto days.